107 degrees all day. I'm hot.
Yeah, I may have an early stop.
We are back. Thrones be the game. Episode 2 of House of the Dragon. How you doing? How's everybody doing? Scott, how you doing, my brother?
What's happening? How you living?
How you doing, Bethany?
Hot, but it's all right. I'm good. I'm doing great. I'm blessed and highly favored. Let's go.
So let's jump on in episode 2. It was named I Love You, Brother. Initial thoughts, Bethany, I'll let you go first. Initial thoughts just overall the episode.
Again, it was a great episode, tightly written, and nuanced is a word that I would use to describe it. The personal one-on-one interactions between just two characters at a time, or perhaps three, really gave an insight as to character motivation and temperament. And I really enjoyed the thoroughness and the thoughtfulness that the writers chose this episode.
Scott.
I might kind of echo those sentiments. I would say that it was really interesting to show the aftermath of the first episode, to kind of give more insight of who the characters are and what their relationships are and were, and more importantly, how they've changed because of this inciting incident. So, I mean, I think that was a theme that they kind of kept, they paralleled those themes between both the Greens and the Blacks, throughout the episode. So I thought that was just a really interesting way to take the same event and then show how it affects relationships over two different families, from the same event for various and sundry reasons.
Yeah, same for me. I thought it was super tightly written considering we just got a bombshell here. I mean, I hope people didn't expect you're going to have like the full-out war starting like the next episode where it's like, I'm just running up on somebody. No, it's not going to be like that. But it was a great way to come back into that next to the episode. I want to start talking about a little bit something that was super funny to me. I rewatched it early this morning. It was the fact that when everybody found out in Rhaenyra's camp of what happened, and like Daemon sitting there like it's almost like a kid. Like, I mean, me and you, Bethany, we have kids, so it's like when you sit there and they're like, oh snap. And then Rhaenys is sitting there looking with the old mother look like, I know this dude. Like, like she look over him like, I already know who's behind
She knew
this.
exactly what happened. She knew exactly.
Yeah.
And it was just
and
like
the way that everybody, once Rhaenyra said, surely they don't think I had anything to do with it. And they literally showed every single character cutting that side eye to Daemon, and then Daemon giving that side eye to when they're like, oh, does she know? She knows. Everybody else knows, but she didn't know. It was super. It was almost like you didn't need the word. He didn't have to come out and say, yeah, it was me. Everybody knew, but Rhaenyra. And then she knew, and she's like, now I got to cut scene and have a conversation with you one-on-one.
Yeah, that was just super funny to me. I was like, everybody was cutting at him looking like, Yeah. And Rhaenys had that old mother thing of like, you was already talking about wilding out last time we talked.
And how she kept the peace, right? When one of the lords was getting a little mouthy, and she's like, mind your tone. We're still in the council. She's still the queen. Mind your tone. So, Rhaenys forever, the mother, and the arbitrator, right, of all interactions in the council.
So we can go to the small council, and King Aegon said he's, livid, throwing stuff, knocking stuff over, having this thing out. He wants to, and he always want to send Vhagar. Like, let's just send Vhagar. Like, he literally that's his nuclear weapon. That's his atomic bomb. Like, let's just send Vhagar out there and let him wreak havoc. Like, okay, this is your one trick pony. Is the Vhagar option? But what did you all think about Otto coming in? Like, we could flip this on some on some campaign manager thing, or we gonna take this negative and flip it into a positive for the people. Like, what'd you think, Scott?
Well, I mean, it was one of the few decisions that I agreed with Otto on. I mean, it was, I mean, listen, it's an unfortunate situation to be in. And how do you maximize that situation, in a way that potentially protects the rest of the family, and other children that are, could be at risk. There's no telling how the war is going to play out, from their perspective. And so, if this is a way that you can get an overwhelming support for Aegon's claim to the throne without having to have further bloodshed, again, it's not what you would plan. But if you find yourself in that situation, that type of, kingdom-wide sympathy is something that he had to consider and had to, make the best use of the unfortunate situation they found themselves in. So, I mean, I agree with it. I mean, obviously it's very difficult to swallow, and you empathize with, the parents, but also, there are more people and more children are going to die, by an all-out war. And so, although as grotesque as that particular scene was, that's not, we see a child murdered, but what about, when dragons come in town and the children that burn and and buildings that fall on them? So it's just as grotesque for any other child to be murdered in that way. So to limit the casualty in that regard, I think was a clever idea.
What about you, Bethany?
Same. And as conflicted as I am as a parent, but that's part of the cleverness of the writing, was to make you feel that conflict, to recognize that two things can be true at once. That yes, it was a terrible thing, and Otto said it. He said, "Let it be known that I grieve for my grandson. However, this thing already happened. Let us turn the tide in our favor." And if you recall, during the episode, when they did the funeral procession, they had what's known as criers, who walked in front of the procession, shouting things, "Let it be seen, Rhaenyra the Cruel, caused this atrocity on the royal house and the heir to the throne." They called her Rhaenyra the Cruel, and in that moment, you understood the power that Otto knew that he could get from that display. Tacky as it seems, as cruel as it seems from a parental standpoint, I wouldn't want to make myself a spectacle. Helena said it. I don't want to. I don't want to do this. And Allison, who could never stand up to her father, was like, "Yeah, well, but we gotta." That moment showed just how great the story writing is in that instance, and making him, Otto, kind of be the bad guy, but for a purpose.
Right.
Yeah, I was like Otto. This is what Otto would do. Like he's a pragmatic person. He's gonna be like, you know what? That's cool. I got a whole bunch of the grandkids that I got to make sure they stay alive. So what Scott is saying, to a certain extent, of like, I have other grandkids I need to keep alive. Man, it sucks that we lost him, but what about my other grandchildren and other family members, other high towers that are going to die potentially in this battle? How are we going to mitigate this as much as possible? And it's something that right after that they said they captured blood. So there is a difference between the Knights Guard and the City Guard. He's a City Guard because they wear gold cloaks. White cloaks are King's Guard. So Daemon was over the City Guard, not the Knights Guard. He's over City Guard, which is like basically the police, the over the regular common folk. That's why I think it's harder for them to figure out that he's intertwined, because it's outside. It'd be Secret Service versus regular cops, is what my cousin broke down to me. It'd be like it's harder for you to figure out a mole inside of the cops that is doing something than Secret Service, because Secret Service is right there with you every day.
Yeah,
and that's what Kristen Cole is over the Secret Service per se, and Daemon was over the City Guard at the time. And he was saying that he said it's so entrenched in their culture of City Guards that later on he said they still would say Daemon's name even after Daemon's gone. Like that's how much that the City Guard mess with him. Like he's that dude for generations. Yeah, we're doing this in honor of Daemon. Like Daemon was our guy. You ain't never. It's like being in a gang and you never met Tukey, but you doing this for Tukey, and you ain't never met Tukey, but or Larry Hoover. You ain't never met him, but you doing it in his name. That's the way I kind of broke it. He didn't say it like that. I made it more.
That's a pretty interesting take.
I changed that up. That's nowhere close to because I know he watched TV like, dude, that's not what I said. He thinks Larry Hoover. But that's the way I took it as like, oh, it's like gangs. Like you just Larry Hoover, you never met him. He's still in jail. But them finding blood, I'm surprised blood flipped so fast to try to drown out the situation.
Are you surprised? I'm not surprised at all. He knew what was coming. He knew but
if I knew what was coming in general, I'm gonna take my L. You're gonna kill me regardless. Why am I gonna say anything?
Well, because he's stupid. Right? He's dumb. He's not a smart cat. Like he saw Larys walk in and immediately started dropping down.
He snitched early. This was the first 48.
Yes, they didn't even do anything to him, and he started singing like a canary. So, it takes all sorts, right? So, he's just not the smartest cat around.
I agree. Okay, I agree that he's not the smartest cat around. I totally agree with that statement. But he is in a situation where there is a single authority that is unquestioned, and so it's kind of like that old phrase, on Usual Suspects. How you take a shot at the devil? What if you miss? And you're in a situation where you did something that was completely out of bounds. It's going to be completely unforgivable to the kind of person who not only is used to everyone just acquiescing to their will, but also is really impulsive. So there's a point where you kind of just got to go, listen. The hell we're trying to play a strategy here. I'm throwing myself on the mercy of the court. Like there's a problem. I messed up. Can I get out of here? Hopefully, if there's information I have that you don't know that could maybe get some leniency. If it's for no other reason, a quick death versus being tortured or something.
Is that what you think? I mean, I guess he did have a quick death. I guess, right? Did he? I guess with this
maybe it wasn't painless. It wasn't painless, but it may have been quicker than being tortured by Larys. Getting beat about the skull with a hammer or a thing. Right? I mean, it wasn't painless, but it may have been quicker than getting tortured by Larys.
Yeah, but maybe it's like
he got better than what he deserved. I mean,
that is the facts.
Today, if you were to murder a 5-year-old kid and decapitate him, you would get worse than that. So.
But I guess it goes back to Bethany saying he's not being smart. I'm wondering why didn't he just? I would have said about anybody. I was like, man, it was Kristen Cole. Like just to throw everything off. Especially if I hate if he claimed he hated Aegon in the realm, why would I even tell the truth if I hate them?
Because he feared Daemon more. He feared turning down Daemon more than he feared the consequences of accepting the mission from Daemon.
No. I'm saying if I do fear Daemon, why am I going to dime out Daemon and I just lie if I hate the realm? I'm talking about if I hate the realm. And because when Daemon came up to me, he said, man, I hate this, blah, 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 blah. He's like, oh, where you do? Why don't you just be like, oh, it was Kristen. Kristen Cole's the one put me up to it.
But that's the game, isn't it? That's the Game of Thrones.
They probably wouldn't believe him anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
but you believe me? I could have said Daemon and been lying. You just gonna accept that?
Right, but I'm saying what happens is so what happens? Play it through though. What happens if they start torturing them? Because ultimately they're going to want the answers that they want. So just like we saw what happened, but immediately they went to Rhaenyra did this. They just moved straight on over to it because that was the most politically expedient and valuable answer to a horrific crime. We know Daemon is capable of it because we saw him actually enlist them to do so. So that guy is not. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. What if he's just trying to save himself from being tortured? If he makes it up, I did this on my own, or I was paid by the butcher down the street. They're not going to believe that answer. They're not going to believe that somebody that low level can get them to betray the king in the king's main city. So it's like right. There's a point where he has to realize, well, he's definitely going to die. How does he want his last few moments to be? And I can see him going, the gig's up. They caught me with the head of the prince.
Yeah,
he's literally red-handed here.
Yeah. I just always like, man, if I hated them so much, I wouldn't even never.
Yeah. But he told the truth. He told the truth, and it just so happened the truth is something they believed, right? And I think
Mhm.
that is what saved him because yes, yeah, they paid me. Damon paid me, and they're like, oh yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. That sounds like it could be the truth. Kill him. We don't have to
Yeah.
prolong it.
Yeah, and then Aegon futurely goes out and kills all the rat catchers because that's who he said. He said, I don't even know his name. I know he's a rat catcher. So they kill all the rat catchers.
And got the right one.
Yeah, when Otto said you hanged, dozens of innocent men, and Aegon says,
No, hundreds. It
but
was
one
hundreds.
traitor.
It was hundreds of rat
Traitor.
catchers.
Hundreds, and Aegon says, yeah, but one traitor. I got the guy. The rest is in his mind collateral damage, and kind of to harken back to that. And we'll get to it, I know, shortly. But when Aemond, the scene with Aemond in the pleasure house, and he said, I'm sorry about Luke. I lost my temper. I'm sorry. Is it Luke? Yeah, Luke.
Yeah.
I lost my temper. And the Lady of the Night says, yes, but when princes lose their temper, innocent people die. Small people die. Pay the price, like myself. So that was interesting. Hey, look, what I consider to be collateral damage in my lofty position means that the innocent people, the common folk, suffer. So it's just a real good illustration of him hanging hundreds of people to catch the one.
And to kind of circle back to our conversation about Blood. What if Blood knew that? Blood knows this, and Blood could have family. Blood could have had other people that he cared about. That he could have known would be in jeopardy had he prolonged giving up the answer. So it was such a heavy-handed response to obviously a very traumatic situation. But to kind of to Otto's point, you burned up all the goodwill because you went when you had your child die, you went and got the sympathy and empathy from the common folk because they could understand how horrific that was. But then you turn right back around and show how little they mean to you because you were willing to murder all their family members and people who had nothing to do with it, people who weren't even, a part of that conspiracy on the hopes that you got the one person that was. And so, again, when I think they're kind of setting that component up, particularly, with his relationship with, Otto and his mother, because we had a couple conversations. There was a scene where the swordsmith or the armor,
Hugh Hammer.
Yeah. And so he comes in and he's talking to his wife about, the crown giving money, and the crown said they're going to pay up earlier. But, being oblivious to the needs of the little people in a situation where you're going to need those little people to react and respond in a manner in which you're going to depend, your life and the life of your family on there. There's this tightrope and that they need to walk. It doesn't seem that he's even acknowledging of, even though when he's not angry, he tries to be a good guy just to be liked. But it all seems to be based upon how people view him and how he sees them view him instead of actually being a more genuine person in those regards.
Good point. Because I was just wondering, and then if people understand the lore, them killing all the rat catchers ends up getting people sick throughout the realm, because now you have a rat infestation and people start getting sick, and it's like almost like the bubonic plague back in the day in medieval times where they had all these rats and they ended up getting sick. So he ends up setting up people later on to be sick because they never had any rat catchers ever again. Like that's never a thing to have rat catchers. They get a whole bunch of cats though. I think 2 or 3 kings end up bringing a whole bunch of cats in the realm. So
I think they changed that. I think they changed that in the book. I mean, not in the book, in the TV show, because what they said specifically, they were rat catchers that worked in the castle. Not just all the rat catchers in the realm. So I mean, maybe maybe they did, but I did pick up on that. They mentioned that the ones that worked in the castle, he worked for the crown. He snitched on Cheese. He said that he was a rat catcher that worked for the crown. So I don't know if that means all of them, or are they going to kind of draw on that point you just made, or they were just saying, hey, these are the ones that work locally. Because I can imagine all 100 of those rat catchers had that kind of access to the castle.
Yeah, no, that probably all did. I mean, I mean, I guess, do you need 100 rank hitchers for a
Yeah, that's what
castle?
I'm saying. Yeah, so I'd be
Yeah,
interested. I'd be
for a
interested.
castle, for a castle, for the keep, for the soldiers' quarters, for the housekeeping staff. Yeah, sure, absolutely, you need that many for the full entirety of the royal household.
So as we pop through there, so we go back to Dragonstone. Um, Rhaenyra finds out. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit earlier. You know, she confronts Daemon. They have this heart to heart, and Daemon and her go back and forth, and both of them have valid thoughts on each other and their relationship and the realm. Um, Daemon was hating. Rhaenyra wasn't being totally looking opaquely at everything in general of her father. And I guess we don't have any resolution. That's how I feel like. I feel like we left, and Daemon got on this dragon and said, "I'm going to Harrenhal." That's basically that's what happened. He said, "I'm going to get cigarettes." That's what he. I'm going to get some cigarettes. I mean, that's
He's about to get the milk.
Yeah, I'll be right back. I'll go get some cigarettes, and we won't see him for like 6 months.
So it was really like I said, I really enjoyed the one-on-one interactions between just a couple of characters at a time, and Rhaenyra speaking to Daemon privately. Remember, so the once she figured out that Daemon had ordered that, or by proxy, you know, if you can't find Aemon, then anybody will do. The next scene, right? The next scene cuts to just those two in her private quarters, and when she said, you know, she says, "You weakened me. You weakened my position. Um, do you accept my reign as rightful ruler and queen?" And he doesn't really answer that. And when she says to him, "I've never wholly trusted you. I know that now. When I was a young girl, you know, I thought it was a game. You know, if you harken back to season 1, when she proposed that they wed to join forces, and she said, 'Uncle, I need you. If we do this thing by pretending to kill Lenore, they will fear us.'" And everybody knows Daemon is wholly capable of all of those things. And so, you know, their union would give a little bit of fear and second guessing to folks who would dare to try to cross them. But she acknowledges now that that was a fool's errand for her. She's like, "I've never wholly trusted you," and you know that you would order the murder of a child, basically in place of a grown man who took my son's life. When she says, "You're pathetic." In scene, right? In scene. She says, "You're pathetic." And Daemon thinks he's right in his own way. You know, he said, you know, your father was weak. He never would have taken these steps to secure his throne, to secure his legacy. I would have done those things. People fear me. But Rhaenyra knows that it takes more than fear to rule, right? It takes a gentle touch. It takes a care and concern that he is just not capable of. And so the words that come out of her mouth at that point, where, you know, he throws the cup, he slams out, and also when let me just say for the record, when he took off on his dragon, that scene was so dope. That scene was so dope. Like, okay, I feel, you know, we feel like he's throwing kind of a temper tantrum. He's mad, he's upset, he's angered that she spoke those words, none of which were wrong, by the way. But him just getting on Caraxes, and you know, Caraxes comes out of the shadows of the dragon pit, takes off with Daemon in full dragon rider gear. Bad things are about to happen. We know this. That scene was super dope. I loved the entirety of it. I yield.
Go ahead, Scott. What'd you think?
So, it's a mixed bag, honestly. So, I mean, I kind of shared all of these points on the first go through. You know, because you can kind of in the emotion of the moment and the revelation of the characters to it. On the second part, the second time I watched it, I picked up on something a little bit different. And so bear with me for a moment. So the same event happens, right? So then Daemon does something that's an overreaction, and Aegon does something that's an overreaction. They are both chastised by both, respectively, Otto and Rhaenyra. So then, after that, they are having that argument, and they're both referencing Rhaenyra's father to Viserys to talk about what type of king they were. The answer to Daemon's challenge was given by Otto. Otto talks about how he was a patient man and how he was able to, be have a cool head and use that patience in order to actually succeed. And so they're all having the same conversation about the same version of a king, where their perspectives, the part of him that they either admired or didn't admire, was what they were trying to act against. So they're all kind of working in his shadow at this point in time in the story. And then the parallel is extended even further, because then now Rhaenyra and the prostitute, I forget her name,
Rhaenyra.
Yeah. So when Daemon runs off, they have a conversation about him and his actions and how he, how he does, how he typically acts, how he responds based on their shared history with them. Then Alice and Otto have the exact same conversation about Aegon later on. And so they had set up this really beautiful mirror image of the families with this one event having the exact same conversations from different perspectives about the same topic. And the way they lay it out, you not only learn, again, kind of we talked about last week, who those relationships to each character, how each character in a relation have interpersonal relationships with each other, but also how outsiders or people who have at least a different perspective see all these characters and those common threads amongst them, which I think the writers do a great job of giving us a lot of character expositional dump without actually having to just say, this is what that person does and blah, blah, blah. It seems more natural in those conversations because people are, having a conversation about a situation where they have felt wrong. And that's exactly how you would talk about somebody. Hey, I only did this because he said I can go free. I didn't really care about the first place.
Yep.
Yeah, so why'd you do it? Because he was going to let me go. I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like people. And so it's all these conversations that are happening, I think are really interesting. With the exception of Christian Cole, I just hate him.
We hate him collectively.
We could transition to Bitchton Cole. Okay, where do we start from?
Where do we start?
Okay, let's start with the twins first. No, let's go him becoming the hand of the king, then the twins, because then that can lead us into that arc of everything with Eric and them with the twins. Okay. So Otto comes in on some, I'm going to tell you about your life, little young man. And he was like, no, I'm the king, Kristen got this idea, right? It was almost like when the people come in with like an idea for you, or like Scott, we know like we've had family members like, man, I got this business idea, OG, like check it out. What's gonna happen? So we're gonna do a little rib shack, but what it is, it's gonna be in the back of my truck, and we're gonna go to all the high school football games. All we need is $5,000 from you, D, and we can make this crack.
And gas money,
Yeah, exactly.
And I need you to buy the truck, and I need you to front me the money for the food and all the equipment that we're going to need, all that stuff. And you're like,
we'll pay you back in about a year. Right. That's Kristen Cole talking to Aegon, and Aegon was like, man, that's a dope idea. Why didn't we think, Otto, why didn't you think of getting a rib truck on the back of a truck right around the high school football games?
Like, it's not like that no one knew he had a twin brother. like it would be one thing if he had a twin that no one knew about. Okay, maybe. Like, people know he has a twin, and everyone has gone through the whole thing of, well, your twin has left, and your twin, so you support one person, the twin supports the other. Like, they already had that conversation. So, and we have any idea whether or not the twin had ever been to Dragonstone?
Yeah, but also too, Miss Rhaenyra clocked it.
Yeah, she did.
Last episode, when Daemon came upon her with whatever twin was with the blacks, right? And she was in the ship, and she said, last time we met, there were two of you. Do you remember that last episode? When she was in the ship, when Daemon was taking her to Dragonstone, and then Rhaenyra freed her, and for her thanks, when she was being escorted to the ship that was going to take her to wherever Rhaenyra said, I'm going to send you with an escort. Can't have you just wilding out here in the streets by yourself. She clocked him, the twin, coming up from the water.
I just talked to you.
she clocked him and turned around and was like, wait a minute. But also too, Otto being so incensed that all of his decades of careful manipulation, machination, to install his bloodline on the throne was undone in like 4 days, 5 days. I don't know. The fact he walked in there so so exacerbated that he really was just clowning Aegon. And Christian was trying to be like, yeah, mind your tone when you talk to the king. He's like, the king is my grandson, and he's out here wilding out. The fact that he called him trifling sent me. I was done. He called him an insolent pup. You're not going to act. And remember, I said our last podcast, Larys planted that seed with Aegon last episode. Hey, Otto was your father's hand. He's not your hand. He was the hand to the last two kings. He's not your guy. And so now Aegon, excuse my phone. Aegon is one of the last people left alive with the landline. So please excuse me. Aegon talking to Christian, wrapping up with him, and he's like, "Oh, you got a plan? Let's go with your plan. That makes sense. Let's do it." And the fact that Otto was just so aggravated that he was like, "Oh, do you ever think about your father? Do you ever think about how gracious he was and how measured he was?" And Aegon was like, "I don't really care. He made me the king." And Otto was like, "Is that what you think?"
That was the best line of this. That was the best line.
He's like, "Is that what you think?" That scene was so meaty, and Otto was just he couldn't believe it. All his hard work down the drain for his grandson, who Viserys never really wanted to be king because he's a little bit of a doofus, right? But also too, Christian is out here piping down the queen. Nobody knows. I think he knows. I think Otto knows. I think Otto knows about it. Go ahead. I agree. I yield.
Well, no, because when they had a conversation toward the end, and she tells Otto, "I've sinned." He goes, "I don't want nobody."
I don't want to hear about it. Daughter gone somewhere. I don't want to know.
You doing you. I ain't even hate it. You doing you. I ain't mad, but don't be coming here talking about that. Because it was in the way he came in, and then he was one. You know what? You don't believe in my dreams, granddad. Give me your your title. Give me your hand of the king now.
Right.
No, and then let him know I'm giving it to him. Like it wasn't even. He didn't even think about it. This wasn't thought out. Like we're gonna have a process. I'm giving it to him.
It was
Keep in mind, folks. This is the first and only time in the Game of Thrones world where the head of the King's Guard became also the hand of the king. This has never ever happened ever in the history.
We're making history out here.
It's like, you know what? You could be the hand of the king and the head of the King's Guard.
That's a very bizarre decision to have.
And he threw it up, but he ain't got nowhere to pin it. He got on the doggone gear. Like where you gonna pin it at?
Just basic fundamentals. We're just not checking all the boxes here.
And then he was like, oh, you doing that? Oh, you lost. Like, all right, here you go.
Good luck. Keeping your mouth shut did get him a promotion. He just sat there. He's twiddling his head. This old man really talk me into this paper, huh?
He's gonna talk me into this paper.
He just gonna run his mouth to make me hand of the king. Okay.
Oh, I want to point out something. This may have gone under the radar unnoticed, but when Otto was speaking to Alicent after he had been fired for the second time, when he says, "I'll just retire to old."
What's up, y'all? This is RVS.
This is ROD, aka Rated R.
And we are the We Coming For You cast. And we talk about pro wrestling from a black dude's perspective. Tell them what they can expect on this here podcast.
Oh, we gonna give you all the raw and dirty and everything black from AEW, WWE, Impact Wrestling, and any other wrestling in between. If you want your wrestling unfiltered, uncensored, and you want it raw, you need to subscribe to the We Come For You cast.
Right here on SOLC Network.
And Alicent said, "No, go to not Old Town, High Garden with Darren." we know and this is what I love about the showrunners this season. They are making it easy for folks who follow the book lore, but not making it so complicated that folks who haven't read the book can't really kind of start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. We know that Viserys and Alicent had a fourth
Three
child,
kids.
right? Three kids?
Yeah, four.
Four.
Three. It's three of them. It's four of them. Yeah. Is it four?
1, 2, 3. Okay, but
It's
the
three.
youngest son is Darren. Yeah. We haven't heard him mentioned yet. Similar to the fact that we didn't hear about Helena and Aemon's youngest son. Mm-hmm. They just kind of wrote him out, and they hadn't mentioned Alicent and Viserys's third son until Sunday night. So their youngest son is serving as a cupbearer at the moment to the Lord in Highgarden, to
the Tullys. The Tyrells. Yeah, Tyrell.
Right. And so that becomes hugely a factor later on. But I like how they just kind of snuck that right under the radar. And if you didn't know, you were like, well, who's that? But if you did kind of remember from the books, you're like, what? They just brought him up. They ain't brought him up since. So it was I really like how that was clever.
But he's the youngest. So he ain't got nothing to do, though. He got to figure out his way in the world. You know, like he ain't going, he can. You know, Aemon is the the big dog. I mean, on there, like I gotta be a cupbearer and get it from the mud. He gotta get it from the mud. He third.
Mm-hmm. Third born son, right?
Yeah. He's like, I mean, what is Aegon the fourth's brother was the head of the not head of the, he was the minister at the wall. What is his name?
Okay,
the one that died.
Back to it. It's gonna come to me in a minute after I stop.
The one that died, but he was basically Aegon the Fourth, the one they call Egg, and they're gonna be doing that show Dunk and Egg coming up. End of this year, they saying early this year is coming out. Next year. But that's his brother is Aegon the Fourth. So his dad is the one that comes out of this. That's that person that connects us to the Game of Thrones. With that, so. That the next series they have after that is going to really be like a lot of people going to be younger versions of people we saw that were old ass men later on.
Now they said they were going to do Aegon the Conqueror series. Are they going to?
Yeah, that's the other one they're developing. Yeah, that's the one I want to see. That's going to be the fly one.
Yeah, that's one.
That's the one that's going to be the fly one because that's the one when everybody come over and that's like they coming over like 500 dragons, like just on some Spanish Armada shit, like we just all coming over.
I wonder what the budget of that joint gonna be.
Oh,
we won't see until 2045. Watch,
but they said only 6 episodes for that. They said 6-7 episodes. That's how much money they got to spend.
Wow.
So with the Darian thing, that's gonna be interesting. We are not gonna spoil that for people and everything, but we go back now. Let's go to Kristen Cole. Doing the ultimate, like, who like he literally just went into the break room and was like like somebody that was the manager at UPS and was like went into the break room and was like, where was you at? I mean, I was guarding. No, you're supposed to be on the dock over there. Why were you at the dock over there? Man, you told me to be at the other dock.
He hit him with the Uno reverse. He hit him with the Uno reverse card, right? God, what you think about it? Because I love that Uno reverse and how the twin kind of checked him before he got shipped off.
Well, no, I mean it's an interesting scene. It's really hard. I think that they want us to see Christian Cole as being tormented and conflicted because he believes he's being pious, but he's torn by his feelings and emotions for for Allison or whatever. But
I don't think about he has no real feels for Allison, man. This is some like I'm gonna mess with my enemies, enemy type thing to make them upset. Like in his twisted mind, I think he thinks that he's making Rhaenyra like upset. That he's messing with Allison, even though she has no idea.
No, I agree with that point. What I'm saying is that I think that the writers want us to believe that about him, that he's conflicted. I believe that's how they try to, because they have these scenes. Allison had the scene with him and going, "Did you tell anybody?" He goes, "Why would I do that?" And she goes, because you're a man looking for absolution or something. And so to me, that's trying to set up the fact that she believes that he's conflicted and he wants to really do the right thing, but his feelings have somehow made him go into this arrangement that doesn't serve them both. But then he takes him not getting caught more seriously than him doing his duty, which for me discounts all the other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like all that piety and stuff didn't matter. It's like, well, you didn't put anybody on Helena's door when it would have mattered, and he failed. I'm sorry, I have to hop off camera real quick.
Okay.
Oh no, you good. Go.
Well, I'll take over for him real quick.
Yeah, go.
So to Scott's point, Christian is doing that old 52 fake, right? I think he like Scott said, I actually agree with that. He's more interested in not getting caught than he is with doing his duty, and shows his immaturity and his youthfulness, lack of impulse control. He prioritizes that more than he does his duty. If you notice, every time he refers to Rhaenyra, he calls her the bitch queen, the CUNT queen. He's disparaging about her, all because she rejected him and his offer to go grow oranges. And in his youthful naivete, he thought that really was an offer for the presumptive heir to the throne. And so this is him deflecting his guilt, his blame, talking to the twin brother, hey, your cloak is sullied. Would you so easily, disregard the purity of our vows? Well, excuse me, sir, aren't you the one?
What are you doing?
Down the queen. And Eric made mention of it. He was like, well, where were you? He's like, it was a long night. We had that funeral procession. My cloak is muddied because I had to push that carriage carrying the lost heir to the throne out of that pit, right? You saw them, trying to push that cart out of the rut where Helena freaks out, and it was too much for her. And he's basically just having his first meal after all of that. And he's just trying to eat and go to bed. He's like, I'll clean it right away. I'll go right now. And Christian's being an absolute jerk, an absolute jerk about it because he's guilty. And he doesn't think that he should have to feel that guilt. And he's pumped up by the support of Aegon, who he's kind of been whispering in his ear and, thinking he's being honorable and supporting Aegon while at the same time not attending to his actual duties as commander of the Night's Watch or the King's Guard, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's just deflection. What did they say? Hit dogs holler, and hollered, and then sent that young man to his death. Oh, I've got a great idea. You've got a twin brother who supports Rhaenyra. Why don't you infiltrate over there at Dragonstone where you've never been? Comport yourself in a way that nobody's going to be suspicious of, and go ahead and kill the queen before the rebellion or the revolution even starts.
And he was like, "You're sending me into my death." And he was like,
he said it.
or the what do you say? Great glory or great glory
or to glory, because in his mind, that's going to redeem himself, absolve himself of his failures in his position, and get rid of the person who checked him. Like, well, where were you at? This is where I was. Where were you? Why doesn't Helena have a Queen's Guard when she ascended on the throne? Why didn't you assign a Queen's Guard to the Queen? And Christian didn't like that, so hit dogs holler.
Yeah, they sent that man out there to get straight killed. Like,
can we talk about that scene?
Yeah,
real quick, where the brothers duel to the death, and the fact that we didn't know which brother was which when they were fighting. And that even Rhaenyra was confused. She didn't know which one to point out to say, no, kill that one. And the fact that they said, we were born together, we'll die together. And when the one was slain, was struck down, the other committed suicide because he would never have been able to live with himself over.
No, he killed his brother.
Twin brother. He never would have been able. And he said, I'm sorry, forgive me, my queen. And he fell on his own sword. That was a lot. That was a lot to unpack. It was so well thought out, played out. And the fact, I want to say, one of the after scenes, the showrunners were saying, we wanted it to be difficult for you to distinguish who was who. And in reality, in the books, both brothers sustained the same injuries. So, you saw one get his leg sliced, and then you saw one get his arm sliced. Well, in reality, they both because they're twins. Of course, they'd have very similar fighting styles, very similar fighting methods, and the fact that they both ended up deader than dead is so sad. But it was beautifully written. The writers are giving us space to kind of feel all the feels and to sort it out for ourselves and settle it in our own spirits how to feel about it. I really liked it. What about you?
Yeah, man. The what I went off of, I was like, I knew that the one twin was cutting the leg. That's what I kept. Was like, the twin that was cutting the leg is the one that is yours, Rhaenyra. But you don't know in the middle of the battle, she's running around. She doesn't know that. From our perspective, you could see that maybe in that one moment. But I think the other one cut the other one in the leg. So it was like, who is who? But I was just wondering if there could have been another result. But the only result is for both of them to be gone. That was the only result.
And isn't that the point of it all? A civil war is brother against brother. Family against family. It's the tragedy in it all. That this is all to a point senseless because we're all fighting for essentially the same thing. We just want a slightly varied outcome. We want maybe a different body to sit on the throne, but at the end of the day, we're all family. Like Aegon and Rhaenyra are brother and sister, half brother and sister.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact that they couldn't sort it, they couldn't settle it, and even the extended family, the cousins are fighting, the aunties are fighting, the nieces and nephews are fighting. I really did also too like the scene where Rhaenyra sent Baela to patrol the skies over King's Landing on her dragon, Moon Dancer, I believe. Moon Dancer. And we also were we met Alan of Hull last episode. This episode we meet his brother, Adam of Hull. And there's I just love
the he owes us. He said he owes us.
He owes us. We
don't want to spoil people that man I know, but he owes us. Corlys owes us.
You pulled Corlys out of the water when he was attacked last season. And again, the writers are giving us just enough breadcrumbs to follow for both purists of the books and newcomers to start. Nothing is ever inconsequential. You're never introduced to a character for no reason, right? In Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. And the fact that you've got two Adam and Alan of Hull, and when Moon Dancer flies over with Baela patrolling King's Landing, he looks and he stares up at the dragon for a really long time. So love it. Beautifully written.
Oh, was that sea smoke? Was that sea smoke like doing its own thing too? Though I've read that it was sea smoke.
Was it sea smoke? Because sea smoke was
bit.
Rhaenyra's dragon.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a right.
It's presumed dead. So maybe it was either sea smoke or Moon Dragon.
I wonder how they're gonna flip that. If Rhaenyra's not dead, how can you mount someone else's dragon? I don't know how that's gonna work.
But they're kin. They're kin. Rhaenyra is the son of Corlys and Rhaenys, and Baela is the daughter of Laena and Daemon. They share common ancestors.
Right. So it's all Valyrians.
Yep, and Valyrian. Yes, correct. So maybe that's the reason. I'm not sure. Welcome back.
Maybe that's the way they get us around it. Like, that's your family. It's all good,
Maybe.
But Scott, what do you think about the twins thing as we wrap it on up, man?
I think it was a really good scene. I like the action of the scene. I didn't really like that Rhaenyra didn't get the hell out of there. She was kind of farting around. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, this was serious.
We didn't talk about that. That's true.
Like, she wasn't really moving like she didn't want to get murdered. Like I get at first being a little bit. I get at first being a little bit, taken aback by understanding what was happening. But once it became clear as to what was going on, she wasn't really trying to get out of there like I think she should have been. I did like how, although they, ultimately killed each other and they took different sides, the familial bond and the brotherly bond was still there. That he found it, untenable to go on having killed his brother like that. Even for his duty or his service. And so I thought that was a really impactful moment. I mean, they've ended all these episodes on things that, while, you know, obviously you're here for a little bit of action, a little bit of drama, they've made them so it's not just the action. There's the kind of background meaning into some of the, you know, the ceremony or some of the decisions that people make, which I think makes it a little bit more impactful, and it resonates to more of the casual audience, because it's not just, you know, go stabby, you know, dragon type of component. So.
Not stabby. Good
Yeah,
Lord.
stabby. But no, Bethany brought up a great point, and that really shows, that really gets the whole definition of brother versus brother. Like literally, twin brothers are fighting. So what do you think this is going to happen in this whole world, in this whole story, if two twin brothers are willing to murder each other?
Yeah,
I agree.
it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. And to Scott's point, he made a comment, I think the last podcast. He said that the writers are doing a terrific job of trusting the viewers to be able to, you know, pull together the puzzle piece. I'm sorry, it's storming really bad out here. It's very loud.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to pull together the pieces with the breadcrumbs that have been left. Also to bring the newcomers who aren't indoctrinated with the lore, the canon of the books. It's allowing them to come to their own organic conclusions. And like I said, Scott, while you were off, like nothing is inconsequential. No character is introduced for no reason during the entirety of Game of Thrones or House of Dragons. So, you know, if you're paying attention, every single character that they're giving more than 20 milliseconds of screen time, just tuck it in the back of your head. Tuck it in the back of your head.
I agree with that.
All right. Well, thank y'all for listening. We appreciate it, man. We will be back next week. I'm anticipating these dragon seers, man. I'm anticipating to see how this is going to jump off, because I'm looking for one of my favorite characters, Nettles, to jump off.
Nettles, the brown girl.
Yeah. And she's always been black, y'all. They ain't gonna change. They ain't changed the. She's always been black, y'all. Because I know she's gonna be.
They'll complain somewhere else. We don't want to hear.
Yeah, but she's always been black. So when they show up as a black, dark-skinned young lady, that's what she was supposed to have been always. There wasn't no recasting. So,
Right.
All right, we'll see y'all. Peace.
Have a great evening.